Random theme music here. Random theme music here. All right. Good evening and welcome to Merriwether's world, where ego and the internet meet in this weird conglomeration. I am your host, Dr. Mark Merriwether Vorderbruggen, creator of Foraging Texas, author of Idiot's Guide Foraging, and doer of many other foraging related type stuff. Okay, so tonight it is episode 62. I was thinking last week was episode 62, but I got a little ahead of myself. Tonight is the real episode 62. But we will still be continuing to talk about elderberry and its mimics. Hey, people are showing up. Hey, Lenore. Hey, Deborah. Good to see you. So as usual, let's start with some housekeeping stuff. Hey, Julie. So let me just throw this up first. If you want to know more about the Merriwether's foraging empire, here you go. So my website, like I said, is www.foragingtexas. You can follow me also on Facebook, which if you're here, you're either on my Facebook page or on my YouTube channel. And then also there's the Instagram. Hey, Mary, definitely keeping it real. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Joe. The tribe is gathering. Hey, Cynthia. Cool. People are here. Okay, more housekeeping. Shout out to my sponsors. Starting, actually, let me do all this here. Let me just grab this and post it. You know what? If I remember, that won't work. Hold on a second. So I'm doing something here. Okay. So let's first start with a link. Hey, Uncommon Bees. Howdy. Hey, Wade. Hey, Alexa. Good to see you again. Okay, starting with the book. Like I said, I'm trying to post a link. A link will be showing up momentarily for Idiot's Guide Foraging. Just a reminder for those of you new to here. Okay, it did not show up. Try that again. I will say Houston right now has 250,000 people without power due to a really awesome storm that came through, but it may be affecting things with all the with the show tonight. So anyway, Idiot's Guide Foraging. Like I said, Idiot's Guide, the way this works is they find an idiot to write a book. I don't actually get any royalties for this. So the link I gave is a special Amazon link where if you buy it from Amazon from that precise link, I get 74 cents from Amazon. So that's pretty cool. Really like that. Okay. Another thing I got to share with you, is of course the Wazoo Survival Foraging Bandana. So again, if you don't have one of these, they're really awesome. It is food safe dye, super, I don't know what the super dye-ish, and that I've test washed one 18 times and it has not faded. So that's good. But if you contact the Wazoo Survival through the link I gave, they actually give me money as a sales commission, even though I was one of the creators of this thing. So very, very cool there. And of course, Uncommon Bees, I would not be here without the power of Uncommon Bees. So let me put their link up. And remember, if you order between now and midnight using the special Forking Weeds coupon code, you get an extra super discount, like 25%. So the Buzz Honey, and since we're talking about elderberry tonight, man, this backward stuff is difficult. So we're talking about elderberry tonight. I highly recommend their elderberry infused honey. Okay. Another thing here. So shout out to Herbs, Ricardo Shilly tribe member. So, did it go in? Okay, yes. So Herbs, it is the East Texas herb shop that I work with. And when I say work with, I have crazy ideas and I bounce off Ricardo just to get another really good herbalist's opinion of stuff. He sells both just the straight herbs and also particular blends and salves and all that stuff made there at the shop. What's really great about Ricardo, whoops, why did that not? What's really great about Ricardo, if you have some specific issues or concerns, he'll set up a phone or Zoom or some way of contacting you and discussing it with you and helping figure out just what would probably be the best thing for that. Hey, Joe, good to see you, man. Okay, but wait, there's more. Of course, there is Fear and Dread, sellers of fine survival gear. So let me put that up there, including, of course, firearms. But like this is a vacuum-packed individual patrol officer kit. So this contains things like the tourniquet and the other gauze and gloves and stuff. In the case of some sort of severe trauma incident, say a car crash or what have you, you have the gear you need, vacuum packed, sterile, ready to go. To help in the situation, assuming, of course, you have proper training, which as a first responder, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I do. Uh-oh. Okay, people are losing feeds. Hey, Charles. Hey, Joe. Hey, Charlene. Hey, Kristen. Oh, elderberry honey is delicious with goat cheese. I can believe that. Hey, Molly. Okay, almost done shouting out to the sponsors, but remember, the sponsors are what make this possible. So a huge shout out to Campcraft Outdoors. They keep me supplied with the sort of bushcraft gear that I like. Hey, Dennis. Hey, Dion. Canvas, waxed canvas, American made, American sewed, no nylon, no plastic, no artificial stuff. Just good old cotton canvas and wax, and we're good to go out in the woods. The nice thing about a pack like this is, since I spend very little of my time on the trail, I need something that can handle being tore apart by the bushes and greenbrier and all this thing. And I got to tell you, the Campcraft Outdoors, and let me put that link up there, has some absolutely amazing stuff. Big packs, little packs, haversacks, some gear pouches, just super duper heavy duty without being super heavy, and so much better than nylon and plastic and all that stuff. Whoops, didn't quite all make it in there, but okay. Hey, Cameron. Hey, Jackie. Cool, lots of people here. Just a second here. Let me drink some water. Okay, I think herbs, uncommon bees, wazoo. Oh, okay. If for some reason you would like a Foraging Texas t-shirt, I do have the Cafe Press store set up, but no one's ever actually bought anything from that. It's been around for over a year, so I don't know if I'll keep that going. Okay. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you for helping me do what I do. And then one last thing here. Hey, Shauna. The only class left until the hot weather drives me indoors. So on June 20th, there is the final class of the spring season, and the summer too, for that matter, because really no one wants to be out when it's 112. But yeah, so June 20th at Deer Lake Spa, or Deer Lake Lodge and Spa, in Montgomery, Texas. If you know where the Renaissance Festival is, it's kind of in that area. There are still 6 slots open. We're keeping it small because of the whole COVID-19 and social distancing and so forth. We're going to keep the class size to 12 rather than the normal 18. And so just to help things there. But there are still 6 slots open. So check it out. Wait, you bought some stuff from the cafe store? I never saw any indication that anyone bought it. I need to check that. Did you get the stuff? I hope you got the stuff. I'm also wondering if Cafe Press is like ripping me off. Anyway, okay, so yeah, I guess that covers all the housekeeping stuff. We talked about the classes, we talked about sponsors. So now let's actually go why you are here. Elderberry. Elderberry, elderberry, elderberry. Elderberry is an amazing plant. Originally, I thought I could talk about it in just 2 episodes of Merriweather's World. Now I'm thinking it could take as many as 4, and this is only the 2nd episode. So last week, and the episodes are still available on YouTube and on Facebook. You can jump back there and look up episode 61, Merriweather's World. We talked about how to identify elderberry, where to look for it, and kind of when to look for it, and then we started on the mimics. So tonight we're going to start with just a quick recap of elderberry identification, and then we're going to jump into some more mimics. Hey, Chris. Special announcement. So superfan Chris Hamlin there, wonderful tribe member. He recently ordered my book from Amazon and accidentally ordered 2 copies. So he offered, most of you who have been around me for a while know I am a constant battle with ancient computers that I'm using, and I'm trying to get money to upgrade my computer system. There's a donation site. If, man, I'd be so thankful if you help me out there. But on the Foraging Texas website, there's a fund to donate towards the Get Merriweather Foraging Texas Better Computers. That being said, since Chris has an extra copy of Idiot's Guide Foraging, he said he would set up a thing, I would set up a thing where anyone who donates $5 or more gets their name thrown in a hat, and then 2 weeks from now, randomly pull one name out, and he will send them the spare copy of Idiot's Guide Foraging. Or if you already have it and don't want another copy, I will send 2 of the foraging bandanas to the person. So there's that. Anyway, more information on that coming as we put it up. I'll post the actual challenge and so forth on the Facebook and Instagram and all that. Andrew, if you post references, you could probably go faster and give us homework. Yeah. See, it used to be that I had my lovely assistant Merriweather helping me out, but school and life got in the way, so I'm juggling all this on my own now. Okay, at this point, we're going to jump over and start actually talking about elderberry. Those of you who were here last week, saw. Whoops, come on. Here we go. Let's do this. We had the presentation here. I'm back to being able to do that. One thing that was a problem was that the mouse was too small, the pointer, and so I went on my computer, figured out how to make the giant mouse, and here on my screen, the pointer indicator covers the entire letter E, that second letter E in elderberry, but StreamYard is still keeping it itsy bitsy. So I don't know, we'll just work with what we have. Okay, so enough of that. Elderberry, more mimics. So like I said, we're going to start by, so the overview. Last episode, we talked about identification, location, mimics. And then this episode, we're going to continue mimics. And there we go. Okay, so a quick overview of true elder. This time of year, the flowers are going to be, so if in the upper left-hand side there, think of it as cauliflower. It's in an umbel state where it's kind of a rounded mound with lots and lots and lots of really closely packed, tiny little white flowers. Hey, Rocky, good to see you, man. Okay. Oh, actually, so Kathleen, is the mouse pointer really big or really tiny? Like if I put it over my thumbnail, is it covering pretty much my entire thumb or just a little black speck on my thumbnail? Just let me know there. Okay, so anyway, so the flowers are grow in what's called an umbel form, where you have a stalk. Oops, I don't have any of the flowers here, but let me, I'll pull this up here again. Oops. Okay, so imagine each one of these green berries, and it's an elderberry flower. So it's a stalk, and then the stalk branches off, and then that stalk branches off, and then that stalk branches off, and then that stalk branches off with tiny berries at the end. So think of it as a fractal sort of pattern here. But the end result is a fairly flat shape. I don't know if we can sort of thing. And think umbrella, keeping the storms off you. The leaves, whoops, I need to go back. We'll just go right to this. So the leaves in the upper right-hand side there, they are what are called compound leaves. So each one of these is a leaflet, and one of the hardest things novice plant aficionados have to learn is the difference between a simple leaf and a compound leaf. What it boils down to is when the plant drops its leaves, would it drop each little leaflet here individually, or does it drop a whole bunch of them at once? And so we'll go back as I pull a leaflet off here. Oh, this might work. So each one of these is an individual leaflet. This whole thing is one compound leaf. So when the plant drops its leaves, it drops this whole thing at once rather than individual leaflets off it. So as far as telling in real life, it basically boils down to, let me see if I can do this. And I'm almost fearing I'm wasting too much time, but okay. Whoa. And I think this was Chris's advice, but no, it's not really focusing. There is no seam between the stem of the leaflet and the main leaf stem. It's just one continuous fused piece, where if you looked at the base of the stem where it attaches to the branch, there is an actual seam there where it eventually breaks off and drops. But understanding the difference between a simple leaf and a compound leaf is one of your assignments. Yeah, Dennis, black walnut. Black walnut is a compound leaf. Yeah, most pecan, whereas oak is a simple leaf. Hey, Shannon. Okay, hey, Karen. So that's the leaf. Let me go back to this. The berries form in a similar cluster to the flowers because each flower turns into an individual berry. Dark, 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 dark purple, almost black when they're ripe. But they form that same sort of umbel shape. Whereas the flowers usually point up, the berries are heavy enough that they'll point down. But the main thing is they're very closely packed together. They're almost touching each other. And then finally, the stem. And let me bring this up again because I actually have some of the stem here. Let's see. There we go. If I hide my face, it focuses in better on the stick. So the stem is going to be gray with dark splotches on it. And more importantly, and hopefully it will focus in on this, there we go. If you cut the trunk, the brown trunk in half, you will see it's just a thin layer of white with what looks like a delicious cream filling. It's not a delicious cream filling. It's actually a pith or a soft spongy material that has some cyanide in it. So don't eat that. Yeah, so Stacy, if you go watch last week's episode, I go into detail telling elderberry apart from the hemlock because that's really, really, really important. Okay, but one thing, if you cut the elderberry stem in half, you're going to see this kind of ring of wood around the white center. So the hemlock does not have that. Okay, so where you find elderberry is areas that are wet, so along stream banks, along ponds, and preferably with full sun, maybe some partial sun, but that's definitely, it likes lots of sun because it's a very fast-growing plant. So it needs water, it needs sunlight. Okay, oops, can I? There we go, okay. Again, just an example. Whoops, I guess it helps if I do that. This is why I don't have my own TV show. I'm just a guy sitting at his kitchen table doing this because I'm not a professional broadcaster, but just a professional forager. As far as where you find it, like I said, near stream banks, pond edges, wet ditches, especially ditches that have water a lot of the summer. If they get a little bit of water, the ditch gets a little bit of water and then spends most of its time dry, you're probably not going to get a lot of elderberry there. Oh, cool. Shannon, yours is 30 feet from a large ditch. I'm assuming the water is fairly constant in there. As far as the map, the brown areas are where the U.S. government claims to have found the elderberry. Now, I've found these maps, like anything else from the government, is somewhat suspect. Use it more as a guideline than as the absolute truth. And what I mean by that is if you're in a county next to one of these filled in brown counties and you think maybe I should have elderberry, you know what, there's a pretty good chance that you have elderberry there too. So, use the county markers as a suggestion, but don't assume that you won't find it in the next county over or even 2 counties over. It really depends on sun and water. Okay. Next. So let's move on to the next mimic. Oh, sorry. Last week, we talked about arrowwood and hemlock. So you can jump back to that. Not going to say much more other than the flowers of these 2 plants are very similar to the elderberry, but really nothing else about them is similar. Like I said, you don't just look at one feature of a plant and assume, it has that one feature that my plant has, so it must be that plant. You got to look at the leaf structure. You got to look at the flower structure. You got to look at the flower spacing. You got to look at where it's growing. You got to look at the bark. You got to look at the trunk. You got to look at a lot of stuff. And like I said, if you go back to previous week's episode, I go into great detail for arrowwood and, more importantly, the extremely poisonous hemlock. So now this week, we are going to talk first about pokeweed. And now, oh, hey, Jenny. Hey, Jessica. Don't do that. Okay. So pokeweed. Now, to me, it never occurred to me that anyone would ever mistake pokeweed for elderberry. The only similarity between them is they both have purple berries. Again, it's one of those cases where everything else is different. But yet I constantly get emails from people saying, hey, is this elderberry? I want to do all sorts of great stuff with it. And it's like, no, that's pokeweed. That is really dangerous. You don't want to mess with that at this stage. So let's talk about pokeweed. All right, first, the flower spikes and eventually what becomes the berry spikes. It is a spike. So we have a single strand at the end of a branch. And then coming off that is one stem with a little flower at the end. So instead of a umbrella, it's a spike. It's a single spike with little flowers coming off it. So you can see it forms kind of a pointy sort of thing. The size of the flowers are the same size as elderberry flowers. The overall structure of an individual flower is very similar to elderberry, but the way the flowers are arranged is completely different. Yeah, Kelly, I say poke looks nothing like elderberry, but there are many people that I've had to stop from eating this. It's there's time after time, people have reported finding elderberry jam at farmers markets with a lovely cluster of pokeberries sitting next to it as the source. It's amazing, but because so many people mistake it, it seemed very, very, very important to include it in tonight's episode. So the main thing here is the flowers. They're a single cluster of flowers that spiral down the spike. So it's not an umbrella, it is a spike. It's like when the umbrella is closed up. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so after the flowers come the berries. The berries are a dark, dark, dark purple, almost black in color. But again, that's where the similarities end. Yeah, Nick, you're kind of right. There's this desire, and it's very common. You want to find a plant, And so as soon as you see a plant that looks anything, any tiny bit of it looks like the plant you're looking for, you just go, yes, that is it. And you refuse to see the other information in front of yourself. Not you in particular, Nick, but in general. So the berries, again, they're on a spiral down a spike. The spike is at the end of the branch. If you look at the berries, whereas the elderberries are just a completely little round pebble with maybe a little dot at the bottom, the pokeweed berries are actually flattened. And if you look closely at the base, you'll see it's almost segmented. And when it dries into this round segmented dried seed pod, I guess. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's flat indentation and then serrations or yeah, we'll call them segmentations on the bottom. Kathleen, you have a question. Oh, you're having streaming issues. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So again, just looking at this, hopefully you can see now that if it's on a spike and each berry has its own stem, there's not like a stem coming off the spike and then another stem coming off the spike and then more stems coming off that stem with berries at the end forming an umbrella or a cauliflower sort of thing. They're totally different. Okay, yeah, Stacy, I want if you're in Houston, they said there are last we checked, 250,000 people without power in Houston due to this really insane storm that came blowing through here. 60 plus mile per hour wind gusts and hail the size of golf balls that caused a lot of problems. So there might be some lag effects due to that, but I don't know. Hey, Mary. Yeah, Wade, good point there. If you grow Malabar spinach, the pokeberries have a similar stalk and color and dangling down thing, but it's not elderberry. I don't know how else to say it, but that if you see a single spike with a bunch of purple flowers on it, and each berry is connected to that main spike by just a short stem, it's not pokeweed. Oh, Kathleen, you have tons of Malabar. Next time we're together, I need to get some Malabar from you. Okay. Oh, you're north of Fort Worth. Pauses, slight gaps in the stream. Bummer. Okay. Continuing on, the plant itself, the overall plant, pokeweed, very different shape and leaves and everything about it is different. Yeah, Mary, pokeweed is poke salad or poke salad. If you go to Foraging Texas, because of linkage issues, I actually do have a post on pokeweed. You know what? Let me bring it up here quick. Well, actually, so let's do elderberry. Oh, it was so much nicer when I had Merriwether to help me. And pokeweed. Oops. All right, because in the early spring, there are parts of pokeweed that are edible. I do have a post of it on Foraging Texas. Okay, so some more things to help you identify pokeweed versus elderberry. For one thing, the pokeweed leaves, they are a simple leaf. So there's just one of them, and well, instead of a compound leaf, each one of these leafy looking things is actually an individual leaf as opposed to a compound leaf. So when this starts dropping its leaves, it drops it here between the stem and the individual leaf. But the other thing is the pokeweed leaves are big. They're like 10 inches or longer, as opposed to the much smaller elderberry leaves, which, you know, each leaflet is maybe 5 inches long. And the whole, basically the entire compound leaf of the elderberry is about the size of one pokeweed leaf. The pokeweed, I'll just hold this up here again. Well, it's a little hard to see in this picture, but the leaves of the pokeweed, they alternate up the stem. So they zigzag. They're not directly opposite each other. Whereas on pokeweed, let me just bring this up. The leaves are directly opposite each other. So pokeweed, the leaves zigzag. Elderberry, the leaves are directly opposite each other. So another way of telling you, you don't have elderberry, you have pokeweed. The edges of the leaves are going to be smooth. They may be rippled or wavy, but they will have a continuous edge, as opposed to the elderberry, which has, it's a little hard to see, if I flip it around here, has a slight toothed edge. You can kind of see on some elderberry, the teeth are a little more pronounced. But the pokeweed, the leaves are completely different. Okay. If you take a close look at the stem of the pokeweed, it's going to be smooth. It's not going to have the rough, bumpy gray color with dark brown spots. It's going to be, especially by the time it's producing the flowers and the berries, a large part of the stem of the pokeweed is going to be a red purplish color. Which elderberry, not going to have that. The leaf stems might be reddish. Let me just put this up there. So the elderberry leaf stem might be red, but the stalk itself is not going to be red. Whereas the pokeweed, the newer parts at the tip there, like in the picture on the left, the younger parts of pokeweed may be green, but a majority of it is going to be this reddish color. And there are comments here. Hey, good evening, Annette. Stacy, rhubarb. It doesn't really look anything like, because rhubarb grows, individual stalks with one big leaf, whereas a pokeweed, actually, the next picture, forms one medium thickness stalk. I mean, the stalk might be about a little over an inch thick, and then as it gets up, it will branch out into more. So this whole thing here really is one pokeweed plant, but you can see red stalks, the clusters of the berries in a single stripe. They're not the umbel. Oh, okay, Stacy, that makes more sense. So we got that going on. As far as location, again, it really overlaps a lot with the elderberry map. And then also keep in mind that wherever it is found on these counties, there's a good chance it's going to be in other counties nearby too. The pokeweed, it really does prefer shade, though it will also grow in woodland borders, or like if there's a clearing in the woods, a small, like a tree fell down and there's some sunlight coming through, there might still be some elderberry growing around that. But generally, it likes being understory, shaded, protected. As far as water goes, and I should say it seems to prefer hardwood forests. So you're more likely to find it around things like oaks and hickories and maples rather than pine. So there's that. Urban green, yes. In the areas where you find pokeweed, you find tons of it. Like the Houston Arboretum is just loaded with pokeweed. They even got I don't know if it's still named the Pokeweed Trail because they renamed a bunch of stuff, but there's one trail that there's a section of it that's just nothing but pokeweed. So you're going to find it in an understory, shady area. Water could be around or it could be dry. So not a big similarity there with elderberry. It's not demanding the water that elderberry does. Okay, so All right, let me just go backward. That is pokeweed, the mimic pokeweed. Hopefully it's really obvious now, the differences between pokeweed and elderberry. Again, if you still have questions, always feel free to email me. You can get to my email address on the Foraging Texas, but it's Merriwether at Foraging Texas, or post on Facebook or on Instagram. You can reach me any of those ways, and I will confirm or deny what you are looking at is elderberry, because I don't want people to poison themselves. Okay, oops. The next one is privet. Now, whereas elderberry is really, 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 really poisonous, the privet is more of a plant that's just going to give you a headache for a few hours. Okay, I'm just reading Cynthia. Yeah, I will say the pokeberry juice is very, very staining. The juice itself is non-toxic to touch, but don't lick your hands afterwards. Well, once it's dried on and you got these weird purple henna type things going on, you probably could lick it, but I wouldn't, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so next one that I get a lot of people asking, is this elderberry, is the privet. And there's a number of privets. In particular, I want to focus on the glossy privet and the Japanese privet, because those two are used a lot in landscaping. And so people who don't go into the woods are more likely to encounter them. So the privet flowers, they grow on pyramidal spikes, kind of like pokeweed. So rather than that umbel, they grow in a spike. So you'll have a single stalk, and then all the flowers are going to be directly connected to that spike. You may have multiple spikes coming off the end of a branch, but the end, if you look at them, you will have a long spike, and each flower is growing elongated along that spike rather than the umbel. Okay? They bloom at the same time as elderberry, which is one of the reasons why people think, hey, I found elderberry, because it's a small white flower in the spring, which they may just go, okay, it's got to be elderberry because I want it to be elderberry. There's more to it. So like I said, is it growing on a spike here? If so, it's probably not going to be, well, it's not going to be elderberry. If it's a spike, it's not elderberry. I don't know how closely you can see the picture, but the flowers actually grow in rings around the stalk. So you'll have a cluster of flowers here, and then another cluster there, and then there's some hidden down below. But it's what we call whorled, W-H-O-R-L-E-D, whorled. So they're in a circle around the stalk. If you know American beautyberry, kind of like that almost. All right, I need some water. Okay, so those are the flowers. The berries, this is where we get the most confusion, because again, the berries are a dark purple color. They're in a cluster. And so people go, aha, I found elderberries. And really, no, you found glossy privet or Japanese privet. Again, here, if you look closely at the way these berries are arranged, is they are in a similar spike cluster like the flowers were, which makes sense because the flowers turn into the berries, more or less. So if you think more like a cluster of grapes, where you have a stem and then the grapes hanging off it, and kind of a pyramidal shape. Here, that'll work. So a pyramidal shape, thick, and then goes down to a point, as opposed, to the umbrella of the elderberry. The other thing is the time of year. The berries of the privets, they usually ripen in the winter here in Texas. So November, December, January, maybe even into February, depending on weather patterns, which in most cases, elderberry is well done by then. So the berries, they're a purple color. They're not as dark purple as the elderberry. They're more of a, I don't know, grape purple. We'll call it a grape purple. Upside down 3D triangle. Perfect, Mary. Yes, Mary Baker. Yeah, so the privet berries, they grow in upside down pyramidal triangles, grape clusters. So pointy, think like an ice cream cone, the point hanging down, as opposed to the umbrella shape. Excuse me. Okay. The leaves of the privet. Again, these are going to be simple. So if you look at the leaves, this is one leaf. This whole thing here isn't some sort of compound leaf. It is a simple leaf plant. The leaves, excuse me, like the elderberry, the leaves are opposite each other along the stem. So they have that similarity. The edge of the privet is going to be what we call intact. So it doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't have any bumps. It's just one smooth, continuous edge. No teeth, no bumps. The vein structure is pinnate, where, let me bring me up again. If you remember, vein structures, so a pinnate, you'll have one center vein and all the other veins come off it, kind of like a Christmas tree. They could either be pointing down or they could be pointing up, but one center vein with all the other veins coming off it like a Christmas tree. The elderberry leaf, an individual leaflet of elderberry is also pinnate. So there are some similarities there, but it's a simple leaf, not a compound leaf. It's just something you will develop this ability over time as you start looking at these things. And then the privets are generally very, very glossy and shiny looking, as opposed to a very dull and just bland, flat, matte sort of color. That's why they call it glossy privet, is because it's very shiny all the time, not just when it's wet. It almost looks like it's coated with a bit of shiny varnish or water or something, but it's not. It's just a very, very shiny plant. Okay, I wonder if there's anyone still here. Okay, yeah, they look wet. Excuse me. Oh, I've been talking a lot, not just tonight, just a lot going on. Okay. Where do you find these privets? Like I said, mainly they are landscaping, but unfortunately, because birds like these berries, they have spread into the wild. They're actually considered to be an invasive species now in Texas. So if you see the glossy privet and you properly identify it as truly glossy privet or the Chinese privet, the Japanese privet, or the Chinese privet, all of them, destroy the berries. We don't want this spreading because not many insects eat the privets. Bees like the flowers for honey in the spring, but then the rest of the year, the privets do not support insect life for the most part. And so if the insects lose food, then the insects die, and then everything that relies on the insects can't find food, and it weakens them. And so it's a trickle up effect of collapsing the food chain. So plant native stuff, plant elderberry, plant Yopon holly. Do not plant privets. But yeah, still, people like them for landscaping because they are durable. They have nice flowers in the spring. The flowers smell delicious. The berries, I've never actually eaten one. From every report I've read, you start eating a few, and the main effect on most people is a headache that lasts several hours. I have no desire to experience that, so I have not tried it. But as far as these blue county maps here, these are where it's been found in the wild where it should not be. So something to keep in mind there. Okay, so those are the mimics. You know what? We're going to save that for next week. Let me come back to me here. Next week, We will start talking about the chemistry and the powers that these chemicals have in your body. So that's going to be, well, it's exciting for me because I'm a chemist, but hopefully you all will again return. Okay, good question, Suzanne. Is huckleberry considered invasive? The reason I said that's a good question is just because it's a very interesting question, and that really true huckleberry has not been found in Texas. There are some native viburnums that look pretty much exactly as huckleberries, and those are considered native and a wonderful source of food for insects and birds and everything else. So no, the huckleberry or huckleberry family members here in Texas are good. Hey, Davey, how's it going, man? Keeping the criminals in line? Cool. Davy Jones and I, well, Davy Jones is this amazing syndicated cartoonist. Look up Charmy's Army. But we also used to work together and had a great time driving everyone else nuts. Okay, Tina, I've been looking into that, and I will try and have some sort of answer for you, but you can actually go pretty high. Looking at the class of compounds, they're actually very, very stable. Okay, Dion, is there any medicinal uses for privet? So in some research, there is some adaptogen powers to them, but I try not to promote it because then people actually think, oh, there's a reason not to kill privet. And the reasons to kill privet greatly outweigh the reasons to not kill privet. So I don't want to get anyone thinking, well, maybe it's not so bad. Yeah, Persephone pomegranate. So Brighton, yeah, I actually have a master's degree in medicinal chemistry and a PhD in physical organic chemistry. I don't make molecules. I figure out which molecules you want to accomplish the job you're trying to do. Definitely awesome times, Davey. I miss it. I need to get down there. I need to get down there again and have lunch with you guys. Okay. Let me talk quick about tomorrow. So those of you, if there's anyone new here who doesn't know about the donut shop at the beginning of the world, that is a daily weekday show, Monday through Friday, normally 7:30 until 8 a.m., where I'm outside in my backyard and we're just talking about whatever. The conversations go all over, but it's a great time to ask questions about plants. And then also, special thing tomorrow. So for those of you, I've been promoting it, but just again to remind, tomorrow the donut shop at the beginning of the world will actually be kind of preempted by me appearing on the Wazoo Survival Skill Series. So from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. tomorrow, I will be doing a foraging 101 tour of my backyard food forest. Talking about the different common plants that have just shown up, the wild plants that birds and wind and whatever have brought, and my overall theory on how to increase the food security of your yard, or even just increase the food, the possibilities of your yard. So definitely tune in. If you come, well, there are links to it on my Facebook account and Foraging Texas and all that, how to get there. And of course, in the morning, it will be there too. But so instead of being here in my YouTube channel, I will be on the Wazoo Survival Facebook and YouTube channels there, talking about the edible plants, wild edible plants that I have in my yard. So that should be a lot of fun. We've been, Wazoo and I have been planning this for a while. I think we got a good thing set up. Because it's going to be an hour long. Yeah, it'll start at 7 a.m. and then just hop in when you can and stay as long as you can. Funny, the donut shop at the beginning of the world, the original plan, it was just going to be a limited thing until reality returned to normal. But we've pretty much decided that it's a lot of fun. So everyone is just because it's like I have story time. Two stories, since I got some time to kill here. This is kind of what we do at the donut shop at the beginning of the world. So story time number one, going back to my dad, his goal for me was that I would become a priest. he always wanted me to become a priest. And I kept saying, it's like, no, Dad, nope, I'm not going to be a priest. I'm a strong Catholic, go to Mass on Sunday, all the beliefs. But as far as being a priest, that's not me. But that doesn't mean I can't be a prophet. So a prophet of plants, if you will. So I find myself on the pulpit preaching about plants. So Dad, if you are watching tonight, and a lot of times Dad and Mom tune in, I'm sorry I didn't become a priest, but I think I'm still helping people in a somewhat not priest-like manner, but I got my pulpit here. Yay, me. Okay, so there's that. The other thing is back where I went to grad school, there was, like so many campuses, they had a campus radio station, a low watt FM station that would broadcast maybe 50 miles or so, and they played just the most bizarre ass music you could imagine, like most college radio stations do. And excuse me. And so if you wanted to, you could apply to get a show on it. And usually they would give people like, a 1 or 2 hour show. Eventually you could get like a 3-hour show if you had enough material to fill that. And it was something I always wanted to do, but I never really had the time. But especially with movies like Wayne's World, you might notice Wayne's World and Merriwether's World, there's some little overlap there. I decided, I can't have my own morning show at RPI, Rensselaer Polytech, where I went to school. But nowadays, I got my own morning show. And the one thing that really I hate about it is I can't play music on it, because there's a lot of music I would love to share with you all. Okay. Yeah, I am where I am supposed to be. And that's what I tell people. If you want to see a lucky person, you look at me, because I am one of the very, very rare people on this planet who knows why they are on this planet, and it is to share this information with you. You are surrounded by these miracles, and I just want to say, look, grab you and shake you and say, look at this and look at this and look at this. And anyone who's been, in a class with me realizes that's pretty much what I do. It's like a constant, oh, look at this. And then, while I'm talking about this plant, I'll go, oh, and I'll see something else. Okay, you stand there. So I remember to talk about that. It's 4 hours of nonstop torrent of information about the plants around us. And I absolutely love doing that. It's Mrs. Weather is sitting across the table from me right now working on stuff. And she's seen me fighting with my computers and swearing and cursing and just being frustrated as all get out, to the point where she does what most guys do and just walks away and hides. I'm not going to do anything on her, but she realizes there's no reason for her to be there and see me yelling and screaming at my computers as they just circle the drain of death. Anyway, wow, 8 minutes. Okay. Something I haven't done in a while is the Merriwether's Words of Wisdom. And I've been thinking about that. And so I was thinking, yeah, the words of wisdom, I don't know if it's, yeah, we'll call it wisdom. We'll call it wisdom. The thought is basically you there are responsible for your future. No one else is. So if you want a particular future, it's up to you to do things in the present to get you that future you are trying to get. And whatever it takes, the blood, the sweat, the tears, that's what it takes. Because if your future is such that you can accomplish it by just sitting on the couch, well, you're probably a very happy person, but I don't know if your future will be that happy. But if you actually want awesomeness in your future, you got to start working on that awesomeness today. Practice, everything like that. Hey, my boss is here. Hey, Stephen, the chief. So yeah, you gotta every moment you think, is this moving me towards the future I want? Maybe not every moment. It's okay occasionally just to go, oh damn, I just need a rest. But you got to be going. You got to be looking. And if a wall comes up, you got to find ways around that wall. You don't just give up, because that future is going to be great, but you got to work at it. So, keep that in mind. Walls, a really wise friend of mine once told me, walls are just God giving you an opportunity to show you how badly you want something. And if you want it badly enough, you will overcome that wall. And on the other side is the reward, or maybe not that wall. There's probably more than one wall there, but just something, you just keep going, you keep plunging, you keep the goal in mind, that future you want, and then you use that as the guide for each of your decisions. When some decision comes up, you got to go, okay, does this work towards my goal, or doesn't it? Or, might it? There's, nothing is cut and dried. You kind of have to make some guessworks there. But yeah, so that's my word of advice. It's up to you to make the future you want, starting in the present now. Nick will appreciate this. So Nick Blackman, Wazoo Survival, space astronaut, engineer dude. He wasn't an astronaut, but he worked for NASA as an engineer. There's this whole thing about asteroids, and if an asteroid was found, heading towards Earth, how do you deflect it? And like everything else, the sooner you apply that effort, the less it takes to get it on the path you want. So starting after this ends, thinking, what do I want for my future? The sooner you start, overall, the less effort it's going to take, because you have more time. It can take little adjustments rather than a big, massive adjustment that's almost impossible to do. Okay, does that make sense? I want to turn the camera around because I'm getting a strange stare from the daughter, and now she's hiding. Okay, so that's not going to help. Okay, so yeah, at that point, we're 4 minutes early, but I'm going to stop now. Like I said, next week we'll start talking about the chemistry of elderberries and the effects the chemicals have in your body, because it's really, really, really fascinating. But for now, start figuring out what sort of future you want, and start making the little tweaks you can make now that will have big results later on. Okay, I am done for the night. I will see you bright and early, 7 a.m. over on the Wazoo site, and I'll put links up to that. Again, sorry, Nick, I realized that I probably should have had those links ready to go. I do have them already on my Facebook and Instagram and all that, but we'll put them up here again. Other than that, I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone. Yep, end broadcast.